Tales from the Unseen World, Chapter 2, Tea, Tales, and Trials. Steam from a pot of boiling water filled the air as Aoife looked around, her eyes shifting quickly, moving to each of the 6 other people in the room. Silence seemed to be sitting on each of their shoulders, breathing down the back of their necks. Lorcan, the small lizard-like creature, poured tea into a cup and passed it to Aoife. She took it and had a sip. It was sweet, but with a bitter aftertaste. But it calmed her. Lorcan started to pass the tea to each of the people at the kneeling table where they sat. There was Dag, the granite-skinned person, Alfred, the uptight elf, who was sitting with his arms crossed. Next to them was a minotaur, who she'd worked out... Next to them was a minotaur, who Aoife had worked out was named Lucy. An elegant woman sat opposite her, with plant vines for hair, which moved slightly even though she sat perfectly still. Another woman sat on her right, with dark tan skin and tattoos spiraling across her entire body, and vaguely Buddhist robes draped across her. Aoife was at the head of the table, sitting on a cushion. She sipped the tea again. Lorcan finally finished pouring the tea and sat back on his knees, clearing his throat and sighing. He looked at Aoife and smiled again. "So, I am sure that you are very confused. Concerned. Even possibly afraid. But please do not worry. You are in safe company. This is the High Council of the Autumn Household. We deal with the daily matters of the followers of Autumn and advise current Autumn." Aoife nodded, very slowly. She didn't understand anything. "Okay, I'm glad that you are taking this so well," Lorcan said. The woman with the vines for her hair suppressed a laugh behind a hand. "Bren, what is so funny?" Alfred, the sour-faced elf, said, his arms still crossed. "Oh, nothing at all, Alfred. Just an odd situation, I guess." Lorcan gave them a hard look and then turned back to Aoife. "I'll do a quick introduction, and then I'll do my best to answer your questions. I think that it is the best way to address this, rather than me lecture you." Aoife nodded again, hesitantly, still as confused as it was possible to be. The vine woman, Bren, giggled once again. Aoife, for some reason, got the distinct feeling that Bren could hear her mental confusion. "All right. Then, glad this works for you. Well, I am Lorcan. I am one of the dragon folk. Not quite a dragon, but somewhat related to them. I was the right hand to Autumn before he died. This is Arkilith," he said, gesturing next to him, where a lady with the tattoos sat. "She oversees public affairs. She is Ferios, or you might know them as a phoenix. Over here, we have Dag and Alfred, you've already met." They both solemnly nodded at Aoife. "You may recognize Alfred as an elf, while Dag is a werewolf. We have Bren over there, who is a dryad. And over here, we have Lucy, who is the historian of the castle." The Minotaur took out a pair of small glasses and put them on the end of her nose. Aoife wondered if Lucy could even see out of the glasses. She sipped her tea, still completely confused. The awkward silence started to push on her shoulders once more again. "So, The eyes snapped to hers. Aoife had no idea where to start. Probably best just to ask something very simple. "Where am I?" she said, slightly shifting on her cushion. That is a good place to start. This is Viren, the capital of the Autumn household, the household that you now rule. Technically, we are in the shadow of a building somewhere in the human plane. However, the last god of Autumn made this space so that we could live peacefully in our own lands. So, to answer what I think that you are really asking is, yes, you are still on Earth. Not the part that your kind has entered in, gosh, must be over 6,000 years. A long time, to be sure." "Alright, so you said that this god of Autumn thing again, and you said that I am it, and that Danu decided. Also, he said I stopped being human. Aoife gestured towards Alfred. Alfred, I am shocked by this behavior, the woman in the Buddhist robes shouted across the table. What? Alfred replied. I was just informing her. Tact is a very becoming trait in a person, the woman stated matter-of-factly. Dag moved to the side and coughed purposefully. Alfred, who seemed to be about to say something, stopped and just looked grumpily at his tea. Ah, well, you see that, well, you touched the flower, correct? Lucen continued. Yeah, the lotus, I did, and this strange ball of light came out? Well, that was called a god bud. After a god dies, their power is turned into a seed from which grows a flower. If somebody with the correct traits touches the flower, when it is fully grown, it blooms, and the power becomes one with the individual that touched it. They become the next god of that domain. A side product, they give up whatever race they were originally. Are you saying I'm a god now? Bren, the woman with the vines for hair, sat up slightly straighter. Well, that is more complicated than it first may seem. Listen, may I? Lucen nodded and sat back cross-legged on his cushion. While you are no longer human, the full transformation will take 6 months, or around that time. It is also made more complicated by whose power you received. Do you know anything of the ancient lore of Earth? I'm not sure. Well, just to be safe, I will give you us a short version of the explanation. The great Mother Goddess, creator of all, gave us the universe to live in. However, the many gods she created to protect the universe and serve it fell to squabbling and fighting. So, amongst a new group of people, the humans, she selected 4 to become the great gods. They were winter, summer, spring, and autumn. They would rule over all domains of existence, choosing amongst themselves what they would manage, and the other gods were lost to time. Most now follow the 4, but some wander, lost, powerless, gods in only name. So I touched Autumn's flower? Young Alfrin over there was supposed to attempt it, but Danu herself, that is the name of the mother goddess, seems to have intervened. Or perhaps it was his Lord Autumn himself, from beyond the grave. Bren finished off, giving a gentle, friendly smile that made the tightness of Aoife's chest alleviate. But what if I don't want to be Autumn? What if I want to go back to my own world, my own family? I've got my own things to do, Aoife said, taking another sip of tea and looking nervously around the room. Lucen sighed once again and nodded to himself. Well, that is to be expected. Danu will not force you to take a responsibility that you do not want. You really do not want the position. Though it is beyond me, there are those who may. The other 3 great gods may be able to separate the soul from you. The room went silent as eyes focused on Aoife. She stared back poignantly, not flinching at the stares. She breathed in the air, making her chest shudder and ache slightly. They were waiting for a decision from her. From that god. Her head swam for a second, realizing what she had just thought. She blinked, shaking slightly, and swallowed her breath. Look, this is incredible, but this isn't my world. This isn't my life. Can I go back? I don't want this. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I was just being curious. I didn't know anything about this. As she talked, she tried her hardest to keep an even, calm tone, trying not to let the nervousness that she felt spill through. Lucen nodded and closed his eyes, just as I thought. It is unreasonable to make you take on this responsibility. Well, I guess that we better work out what are the next steps. Lucy? Lucen turned slightly, and the corners of his eyes turned downwards as he moved. Yes, of course, the Minotaur said, cocking her head and smiling at Aoife. Well, there has never been any accounts of how to do something like this until a few weeks ago. There were no records of any great god dying. But it is true that the best bet is to go to the other great gods. I would suggest Summer as the rule of knowledge domain. She nodded to herself. Summer would never help us under any circumstance. She should go to Winder. He is the largest library of the Four Kingdoms, Dag said, unfolding their arms and leaning forward. She should go there also with a guard. We can not have her power falling into unwanted hands. Winter will not aid us, not since Lord Autumn took Mongolia into his domain. Best not to put too much strain on the relationship. We should go to Spring first. They are our closest ally. And they were the closest to Autumn, after all. Keyleth said. She stroked her chin as she talked. As for a god, the Philos can send our greatest knights. The Lycans will not stand for that. All the houses should be represented. Dag responded. Lucen cleared his throat, and this talking subsided. We cannot let Aoife leave by herself. That would be ridiculous. For starters, she does not know the way. Secondly, she should indeed go to Spring. It is the furthest journey, but it will be the safest. Spring also rules over magic, so she will know what to do. Lucen bowed his head for a second and then turned to Aoife. I understand that you have a life that you want to return to. But this journey will take some time. Don't you have magic to get me there? The same way I got here? Aoife asked. Well, yes, but our magic is only as strong as the domain that we have bonded to. In other words, you. But you do not have full control over the domain. You have no control over it. So, we are unable to use any of our most potent magic to get you there. Alfred looked up slightly and coughed. So, who will be going with her? Dag slapped him on the back with their armored hand. Alfred lurched forward with a jolt. Don't worry your wee head about it, Alfred. We're not gonna send you. The group should be no more than 5. We can't be letting any of our enemies get a whiff of what we're doing. Dag sat back on their legs, stretching their arm out. The werewolves will send one of our captains. I call for my child to travel with the young god. The word enemies made Aoife turn sharply. Noticing this, Lucen reached out, placing his scaled hand on hers, which was gripping the cup of tea slightly too hard. It is all right, nothing to be afraid of. It is all right, nothing to be afraid of. There are just people in your part of the world who do not like us and may try to hurt you. But we will protect you very well. Aoife nodded slightly. The conversation had continued as Lucen had spoke. Dag and Alfred arguing about who should be going, and Lucy sitting quietly, sipping her tea to one side. Lucen cleared his throat. The room fell silent. For one so fragile-looking, he held an impressively commanding aura. I vote on the following. 1 knight of the werewolves, 1 knight from the Felios Order, and 1 of Elven King. 1 other from the household. I vote for someone from the Beastmen. They are neutral and have good standing in all nations. Bren sat up slightly straighter. This is good for us. The triad duties are here, but I think that this is appropriate. I second this motion. Who is in favor? Bren, Keyleth, and Lucen raised their hands, as did Lucy. A few seconds later, Alfred and Dag joined, somewhat reluctantly. The meeting continued as they tried to decide who else should go, and which specific tracks they should take. In the end, they couldn't decide. Names were just flying from their lips, and Aoife was left completely lost as they continued without her. Eventually, they settled to simply present her with some candidates in the morning, and let her pick. I'm not qualified for that, she thought as she nodded in agreement. I hope this works out, she thought. Aoife could feel the exhaustion from the day starting to weigh over her, realizing all of a sudden that she hadn't eaten yet, and it had been hours since she'd left the library. Lucen clapped his hands together. I believe that is the time for us to retire, no? The others all nodded solemnly. Then I shall lead Aoife to her chambers, and the rest of you should return to your homes. We shall visit in the morning in order to pick who shall go with Aoife. Have your best on display. All the council members stood up and bowed first to Aoife and then to Lucen. The small lizard man, rubbing his face, turned away from the door as they left. Shall we, Aoife? Aoife, still watching the others, jumped slightly. Yeah, so can I go back to my world tonight? Well, no. Probably best for you to stay the night in your chambers here. I am sorry. This is a very tricky diplomatic situation. feel like I'm causing you all sorts of issues. Well, yes, you are. But it is also our job to deal with them. So we do not mind, despite the grumbling. You must be hungry anyway. Would you like me to have something sent to your room? That would be very nice. Thank you. Aoife was led by Lucen to the top floor of the building. A penthouse apartment greeted her. It was gorgeous, with paintings that adorned the walls and curtains. There were cushions all over the place. Lucen left, promising to have food sent up to her. She wandered around the room before sitting down on the bed. A small piece of paper lay in the center of the bed. She reached over, flipping it around. Hey there, replacement. Well, I hope that you like my room, and it's to your tastes. If you're reading this, congrats! You are now Autumn. I am writing this just in case I die. Doubt it, but you never know. If I did, I'm sure it was awesome, like with fireworks and tsunamis. But anyhow, good luck with this. It's really hard work. But you don't have to worry. If you were able to receive my power, then I'm sure you're awesome. The Autumn household is like a family to me. It's all the people that have supported me throughout my time here. Treat them well. Remember, the first domain of Autumn is kindness. The second, adventure. The third, fun. Live by those three, the rest will come pretty easily, honestly. The world may seem pretty scary and hard to come to terms with, but remember that all will be well in the end. I've really loved being Autumn. It was my purpose, and if I did die, I'm sure it will all turn out well. Anyhow, you're gonna do great. Yours, and also you, Autumn. Also, P.S. Don't worry, you'll get used to the ears. Aoife looked at the note. The letters were scratched away and kind of dusty. She didn't know why, but the letter seemed to calm the butterflies in her chest. She lay back, thinking about the letter. The bed absorbed her, and almost instantly she found herself in restless dreams of creatures of odd shapes and things in the shadows of water, figures in black suits.